Hey, it's Love and Relo, everybody. How you doing out there? This is the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross, and I am fine
I don't know if it's,
now. Michelle, you back?
I'm
Did
back.
I leave?
Yeah, that
Uh,
was you. I was still moving. I think
oh
that
my
was you that was
gosh, my
skipping.
Wi-Fi is so janky right now.
No, it's terrible.
My Wi-Fi has COVID right now.
Everybody's working from home. They're clogging the lines.
I'm gonna blame it on my neighbors. But Michelle Velasquez, how are you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. Like I said, it's the first time I brushed my hair in like 15 days.
You look
So
great.
wearing a
This
little
is
bit of
great.
makeup. Feel pretty good about it.
Okay, all right, okay. And where in the world are you right now?
I'm in Houston, Texas, so southeast side of Houston, which in my opinion
H-Town?
is the hotter side because I'm close to the water. It's real humid, like 96% humidity today. So
How warm is it though right now?
I think it's like 85, probably something like that.
Dang,
But yeah,
85.
I mean, I shouldn't complain because I know there are people in parts of the world that are having to deal with cold and rain and all that kind of stuff. So I guess this is the better alternative to that. But it's hot. It's getting hot real fast.
If we're live here on LinkedIn, check on that. Everybody, I see a few people watching on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure to check in if you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. I want to know where in the world you are. Give your company a shout out. Give Michelle a shout out. I know there's a lot of people that love you. Michelle's awesome. Give her a shout out, and then we're gonna give people. We're gonna check in with you guys there in a little bit. Also, ask your questions as well. I love taking questions from y'all, so keep them coming. Let's see if I've got the. LinkedIn's been really squirrely with the notifications lately.
Yeah.
And still hasn't hit yet. So anyway, let me just check. So Michelle, I know you have a daughter.
Yes.
And you're in work from home mode like everybody
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
And I'm sure your daughter is probably also at home.
Yep.
Right? What's that like for you right now?
So, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. I was, on a virtual happy hour yesterday with some of the people that we typically do the Relo circuit with, and we were all just commenting on this is the longest we feel like we've been home consecutive days in years. So it's kind of an adjustment for both of us because I think we're kind of 15, 16 days in. We're now getting to that point where we're getting on each other's nerves. But yeah, it's just her and I. She's 10. So, I'm trying to keep my normal work schedule from home. She's trying to do schoolwork. I'm trying to help her with their schoolwork. So it's definitely a challenge. I know a lot of other people are dealing with the same thing. So most of the time what the issue is we're vying for space. So it's like, I need to be here in this spot because this works well, but she wants to be there as well. And so it's, having to do.
And you're like, I'm getting on a live video. Go to your room.
Exactly.
Be quiet.
I really did exile her just now. Her and my dog are exiled in the other part of the house right now. So if they come out, it's because there's blood or something drastic is happening.
Yeah, it's like pretend you don't exist so I can tell everybody how much I love you on the internet.
Exactly.
And if I hear you, you better be dead.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what? So sharing the space has been really hard. Have you had to do any of the homeschooling stuff too?
Yeah. So
to me, that seems like that would be a big challenge.
So I'm really lucky because her school district is, they've been doing a great job about communicating with the parents and putting the resources in a place that's easily accessible. So theirs is pretty good. Every single week, what they do is they reissue a new lesson plan for each grade level, and it's the same across the grade level. So I don't have to worry about like one class getting something different than Emma's class, but within the grade level, then they have for each subject, so like if it's science or language arts or math, they have a link directly from that site that goes directly to the site that you're supposed to be performing the tasks on. So the challenge the first couple of weeks was just every site had a different login and a different password. And, when you're dealing with a 10-year-old, it's like they don't understand, that you can't enter the same password for every single thing. So it was just every time she would try to work on it, I'd have to log her back in and all that. So I think we got that down now. And then now she can kind of work through it on her own time, which is awesome.
I don't even remember my own password. I had to reset my Spotify password today. I don't know any of my own passwords. I don't know how a 10-year-old could possibly
Yeah.
know any of these things.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I can't say that, as far as cybersecurity, that I'm doing the best job over here, because I have clicked that save password button every single time. I don't have time. I don't have time to look them up each time. So
Teaching
if anyone wants to hack into my daughter's grade, let's go right ahead. So
just get her a B or better, right? That's
yeah,
all, right?
exactly.
Hack in there, get her a B. Let's see here. We got some folks checking in here on Facebook. It looks like Facebook's working well. Let me know on LinkedIn if it's working there, because I see it looks like it might be tripping up there. So let me see. Jason Rollins.
Oh, hi, Jason.
Hi, Michelle and Ben. Express Corporate Housing is tuned in. All right.
Hi, Christy.
Christy. I love Christy's bar name. Is her given name Broadway, or is this just her club name?
I mean, I think that's her name.
That's her name.
Awesome?
Okay. I love it.
I know.
Western New York checking in. Hey, Quirk.
Nice.
KD Francisco out of Florida. How's it going? Vinny.
Hey, Vinny.
I think Vinny is the relocation industry's favorite guy you want to have a beer with.
For sure. Absolutely. And dance with as well. He's a phenomenal dancer.
I did not know that.
Dance floor, he'll dance all night.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It's always the Latin guys. Even when I was in middle school, it was always the Latin guys that could dance.
True.
I'll tell you what. Paula Holloway from Georgia.
Love it.
KD Francis.
She knows. So she knows. I'm telling you, I feel like everyone across the country is having these same issues with the millions of websites that we've got to keep up with for schoolwork. Crazy.
Christy straightened me out. Okay, maiden name.
Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, awesome. And then let's see if LinkedIn has straightened itself out yet. Got to make sure we got a group together. We have to have a quorum here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let's see here. Between my Wi-Fi and the LinkedIn. Here we go. Let's try it one more time. Okay, so I do want to ask you, while I mess with this, I do want to ask you, we're obviously going through this time it's unprecedented, what we're going through, what we're seeing right now. And I'm wondering, from a corporate housing standpoint, because that's really your specialty.
Right.
How have your clients been responding to this? What are some of the more interesting challenges that have come up?
Yeah.
How are y'all dealing with what's going on right now?
Yeah. So it's, from a temp housing perspective, we're kind of seeing a dichotomy of what's happening around the country, and it's different depending on where clients are transferring people or needing temp housing. So preferred corporate housing specifically, we focus on domestic needs. So ours is mostly North America. So don't really have as much of a global perspective as far as what's happening there. But what I did see, and this is, unpopular opinion alert is coming right now. What I did see, I think.
I love unpopular opinions, by the way. If we could just make the rest of this hour an unpopular opinion alert.
I have lots of those.
I would dig it.
I can defend them pretty well, but they are unpopular. But I think that the relocation industry may have perpetuated some of the panic that happened. Obviously, what we've come to know right now, whether it's right or wrong, the protocols that we're following right now are stay put, shelter in place, isolate. And I think what happened is, when we saw the writing on the wall that all of this was coming, we started mobilizing people and sending them home, wherever home was. And so what happened there is, wherever they were, specifically from a temp housing perspective, they had a home, be it temporary, but they left that and went back to wherever they are. So So
they went back to like origin, then, you mean, like where they were from?
Who knows? I mean, if they were on a temporary assignment, maybe they went back to, their hometown. If they were mid-relocation, maybe they scurried to get something more permanent. Our overall business and clientele, we kind of do about 60% relocation related moves. The other 40% are project based and things like that. Training, could be anything like that. And so we just saw a lot of people scurrying to get from where they were in temp housing to somewhere else, which obviously, based on what we're doing now and what we know now and the protocols that we're following, kind of went against what everybody was saying should happen. So I'm not saying we necessarily spread COVID more, but I do think people moved around a lot more than we probably should have, and myself included.
So you're saying when they could have sheltered in place at their, let's say, at their corporate apartment,
Yeah.
instead we basically asked them to travel back home or wherever home is, or wherever they feel more safe.
Yeah, I think companies did a good job of, at least the clients that we work with, they did a good job of making it the employee's choice. Obviously, and I'm going to look at my perspective. I'm a single mom. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I was in Vegas at a client conference when all of this started getting a little haywire. And if somebody would have told me I couldn't go home to be with my daughter during this, I would have fought tooth and nail. I would have moved mountains to get home to her, to spend this time with her. So, I see that perspective, but I also see if you've got something more permanent and you're there for a reason, in retrospect, obviously Monday morning quarterback, it may have been a better idea to keep people where they were, or at least advise them that it's a better idea to stay where you are instead of taking them back home and potentially spreading it more.
Yeah, because those decisions really ignited travel events,
right,
in a lot of people.
Right.
And it's funny. I was talking to a corporate mobility manager yesterday, and she manages a really big multinational program, and she's talking about them going through evacuations right now.
Right.
But she's also saying we're evaluating on a case by case basis because it may be better for them to just stay put.
Right. And so that was kind of our take, and going back to your initial question about what are the challenges we're dealing with, corporate housing as a whole experienced a ton of cancellations, mid-stay cancellations. So obviously with corporate housing, we have a lease in place, and that's from your start date to your end date, and it could be anywhere from 30 days to 6 months, 9 months, depending on the type of project that you're there working on. And so if you're 3 months into your stay and now you're canceling because you're going to go back home, that left a lot of temporary housing providers on the hook for a lot of rent that we'd committed to at these properties. Because, the traditional corporate housing model, we don't own these units that we're offering to our clients. We're leasing them from, multifamily communities and things like that. And so that's the biggest challenge with our industry right now is there was a huge kind of reservation cancellation that happened right at the beginning of this. And a lot of corporate housing companies are now holding the bag on a lot of empty units that they can't refill. So now you're seeing a lot of them marketing, below market value rent.
Right. I mean, what do they do in that situation? I mean, are they getting any relief from the property owners, from the building ownership? I mean,
yeah, so that's
or are they stuck in those things?
And kind of goes back to what I was saying before is, if you look at what the government recommendations were, whether you're talking about Chicago, New York, any municipality, local, even the federal recommendations, they were to stay put. So if you're a property owner and you've signed a 9-month lease or a 12-month lease with the corporate housing provider, and then you get a call that says, hey, my client's leaving, are you motivated at all to try to do anything to help that person out? Probably not, because it goes against everything that they're recommending, right?
Well, and also you can't really re-rent it. I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
It's not like it's June in a normal market,
right?
And you could turn around and say, yeah, sure, I got a lineup of people wanting to get in this property.
Exactly. And so that's the one thing that I think was a little shocking from my side is, like I said, I see both sides of it because as a mom, I would have moved mountains to get home. But most of these people that I'm talking about were people that were already there for a period of time. They had, made it a temporary home. But, we even got an email from a Fortune 100 company. And the email was written in a way that says, as you know, the COVID crisis is creating major burdens for corporations across the country. We're asking that you release us from our obligations going forward through these leases. And of course, we had, a couple of apartments with this client, to help alleviate some of this financial pressure we're under. And
you're like, I'm a corporation.
I had to read that email a couple of times because I'm like, if you're a Fortune 100 company, $1 billion that you've got. I get it, that you are under some financial pressure, but you're asking a small business to now hold the bag, for these leases that you're going to walk away from which ultimately goes against the recommendations that everybody's been saying to try to combat this disease or this virus. So it's just things like that. I got some stats from CHPA, Corporate Housing Providers Association, right before this call started. Thanks, Nick, if you're listening. I don't know if you are, but 65% of the member companies that CHPA has earn less than 5 million or report less than 5 million in revenue. So these are, not huge margin companies that we're talking about. These are small businesses across the country that are now, holding the responsibility for these leases that companies had to walk away from because of this crisis. The other side of it, which is a little more easier to, kind of explain and understand and work with, is these were companies that backed out of a reservation before the transferee or the guest actually moved in. So that's a different conversation. That is, we intended to take a lease. We intended to move forward with this relocation. Because of this, now the transferees decided to stay home, or, we're going to cancel their relo for now. That's a different conversation. And that's definitely something that corporate housing companies were, it was easier for us to accommodate those types of things. And we had a lot of that as well.
But then you got a lot of people that were already in the units on assignment that now got pulled back. Yep. And you're saying that's a little bit more of an interesting decision because they were already there. They're already doing the job. What's the rationale there? And, you wonder if the corporations would have known if they would have been on the hook, or, if that would have been enforceable. Would they have made that same decision?
Yeah, that's varying across the industry right now. I think CHPA has a webinar. Actually, it may have been today or it's tomorrow. To kind of talk to our members, so other corporate housing providers, about how we're handling these types of things and best practices. And obviously CHPA wants to give us resources to help with the CARES Act and all of that kind of stuff. But, it's from what I've heard, it's varying across the industry. Some companies are, kind of holding the corporations responsible through their obligations. And some of them aren't. Some of them are meeting them in the middle. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we're trying to do to be creative. But, I guess the perspective that I just want people to have is, we as corporate housing providers have committed to these reservations long term with the expectation of, your transferee or your client or whoever it is staying in the apartment. And when we cancel mid-stay, we're the ones left holding the bag because there really isn't any negotiation we can do with the properties that we've already committed to. So it's tricky. It's a tricky space right now.
Now, is there any way to, and I see y'all on LinkedIn, and if you haven't left a comment, I want to know where you're at. Just give your company a shout out, give Michelle a shout out, ask some questions, leave some comments for us to discuss. Is there any way for you to target a different market? Maybe it's a first responder, maybe it's nurses that's surging in metro areas, maybe I don't know what.
Yeah. And so, just kind of backing up a little bit on that, I'll say that there are different models of corporate housing that, companies utilize to provide their services. So there's the traditional model where they commit upfront to a really long lease and they, kind of move people in and out of those leases. They may have a 3-month stay at the beginning and then, they'll clean it and turn it and provide it to someone else on the back end of that. So those are the ones that are really struggling right now because they've committed to all these leases long term and they may not be able to backfill them as easily as they would have in a normal market. Then there's companies like ours, Preferred Corporate Housing. There's a couple of us that we do what's called matched leasing. So we'll take out a lease with the property for the exact length of time that the transferee is expected to stay. So we have a lot of 30, 60, 90-day leases that we do direct with the properties. Those are a little easier to negotiate and to back out of when we have situations like this. So we're not holding the bag for, an extreme amount of time in those situations.
Right. Because those are kind of month to month anyway by nature, right?
Yeah, exactly. Most of the time. Yeah. So because of that, I think it positioned us, PCH specifically, better to be able to weather a situation like this. We've got less risk out there long term. But, like you said, we have the benefit in the fact that most of our existing stays wound up extending. So, if they were supposed to move out mid-April, or end of March, they asked if they could stay longer because they don't want to travel right now, and so we were able to accommodate that. So that helps, obviously. But our new requests have definitely slowed, and our new leases have definitely slowed for the same reason, because people just aren't mobile right now. Or if they are, they're essential workers and things like that. It's just less of a population. So what you are seeing across the industry is a lot of shifting and trying to diversify your clientele. So like I said from the beginning, PCH's clientele, we do about 60% relo, about 40% everything else, and everything else could be medical staff, it could be training, it could be movie productions, sports teams, anything you can imagine. So because we have such a diversified client base when it comes to things like that, we're already well positioned to be able to shift and kind of target different industries, different segments that may need our services right now. So we've experienced things like this in the past. Obviously, being based in Houston, when the oil and gas industry was kind of tanked for the extended period of time it was, there were a lot of Houston-based corporate housing companies that had all their eggs in oil and gas baskets and really had to tighten up their margins and suffered during that time because they weren't diversified. So we've spent a lot of time just making sure that we don't have all of our eggs in any basket. And, I think that definitely helps us right now. But across the industry, I'm seeing a lot of our friends and other corporate housing companies doing some really creative things, targeting those medical professionals, who are trying to quarantine from their families, and offering, apartments at great rates, for one, because they've already committed to these leases. But, there's all kinds of creative things. We're still seeing a lot of RMC, movement. And when I did a deep dive this morning to try to figure out what the origin of that it is these RMCs that have manufacturing and medical device clients and healthcare clients. They're still moving people because they still have to be, people are going to New York to help there. People are going to Chicago. They're going to these really hard hit areas and trying to provide service, or they're getting their, factories back online so that they can make these ventilators or, whatever it is that you're seeing on the news. So we're still seeing a lot of requests. We're still seeing people moving. It's just not as many as it normally would be leading up to summertime.
A lot of good information, Michelle.
Yes, I told you I could talk.
I love it. I love people that can talk. Gosh, I get people on here sometimes and they're like, one word answer me over here. No, I appreciate that. I'm just kidding. Not kidding. All right. Got a couple shout outs here on the LinkedIn, and if for some reason I don't read it, repost it, okay? Because that means it wasn't given to me. It was cut off. John Marsh, Michelle V is in the house. I hope you brought your guitar. I hope you brought your guitar, he says.
Oh, it's right over there, but it's probably going to stay over there.
And John, unless you put a GoFundMe together right now and get about $100 in it, Michelle's leaving that guitar over there. Right. Gabriel Wacker. Right. What do you play, by the way? What genre? Are you country girl, rock girl?
You know what? I just play. So I like to sing. So I'm less of a guitar player and more of a singer. So I only play the guitar well enough to be able to sing along. So my genre would be sitting around a campfire. What it would be. So
you kind of like strum that one chord and then kind of take it from there.
I know like 12 chords.
Okay.
Well, a little more than one.
Did not mean to assault you there or insult you. Gabriel Wacker, LinkedIn is working. Paul Seymour, I got you on LinkedIn. Great. Simon John says it's red hot in the UK, 20 today, nice. 20 Celsius. What's that in Fahrenheit? Can I get a conversion, people?
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't you know I'm an ignorant American? I don't know Celsius or centigrade or whatever you call it. Janet Turner is good. Roy Ramirez checking in. Joshua Reen, shout out to Reloology Inspections. They are the best. Okay. Lindsay Altman. Lindsay says, what song are you singing for us today, Michelle?
I knew she was going to say something about that. I was on a happy hour with her yesterday, and she mentioned that she was going to try to make me sing. It's not happening.
Well, the next comment's from Alan Grantham, and it says, do a duet.
No.
You see where this is going?
Yes, I do.
You got to give the people what they want.
Well,
just saying.
Yeah. I'm my armpits are sweaty now just thinking about it.
All right. I love it. A little TMI this afternoon. Okay. All right. Let's do it.
You got to keep it real.
Keep it real, right? Real and relocation. Zeta Hammond says we're good on LinkedIn, looking good. All right. Janet Turner. Janet says, I know of some transferees having a hard time finding long-term leases right now in Manhattan, and or a lease may exist, but the current tenant cannot move out.
Yep.
Because of the same issues.
Yeah,
is that creating a bottleneck for you? Or?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Janet. And actually, I made some notes of just some things to talk about, just to let everyone know, kind of set expectations if you are still trying to move people. And one of those things is the difficulty with getting housekeeping services done. So that kind of speaks to both of the things you're talking about. There may be an existing guest in the apartment that may be trying to move out or maybe already has moved out, but getting a housekeeper in there to turn the unit has been a challenge because housekeeping isn't considered an essential service. And so, a lot of the housekeeping companies that we contract with are not working right now. And it's not, necessarily safe to send a housekeeper into a location where somebody has been. So obviously the professional companies that are out there that are still running have, major shifts in their protocols as far as cleaning and sanitation and those kinds of things, which ultimately take longer once again. So less housekeepers working, more strict cleaning protocols that they're following, which means it takes longer to clean, which means there's less, appointments that they can do at a regular basis. So it is creating a bottleneck on that side. And I would say across the board, from everything I've seen, most housekeeping services, if you had regular housekeeping scheduled during your stay, those have been canceled. So it's not safe for the housekeeper to go in. It's not safe for the people that are in the apartment to have another body that's in there. And really for furniture and housewares and any sort of service, if you think about like cable technicians, anybody that would install any type of service, they're not performing any of those services if there are people already staying in the apartment. So let's say, you've got a blue chair and you want to switch it out for a green one. That furniture company is probably not going to be able to perform that switch for you in this time right now.
I will shout out our movers out there because moving companies are operating. Mm-hmm. So if temp housing companies want to engage with their moving partners, it could just be a difference of classification there because furniture companies probably aren't essential, but moving companies probably
are operating.
They are. Okay.
Yeah, they are. So furniture and housewares rental companies are operating, at least the majority of the ones that we work with. So we work with some national providers. We also work with some locals. So that's been a challenge for us, is really kind of staying on top of what regulations are changing day by day that says they can do this and they can't do that. And then obviously they're ramping up their protocols to protect their people as well. I'm sure the moving company is doing the same thing.
We're trying. I mean, it's hard. I mean, the nature of the business is you're in people's homes.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, we got a guidance out from the Department of Defense, who's the largest customer in the moving business. Mm-hmm. And they said, you have to maintain a distance of 6 feet away. You have to wear a mask on every job.
Right.
I mean, similar guidance that we're hearing from the federal government right now. Around just, going outside, but they're requiring it. Mm-hmm. But it's, and it's funny because
if you think about furnished housing and kind of how it works, at least from my perspective, I'm sure other people operate a little differently, but there's a lot of moving parts that have to come together to get the apartment guest ready. So in a normal environment, when we're not talking about COVID, we have a new reservation. We're going to set up a new apartment for a new guest. We schedule furniture to be delivered. That's usually the first step. They go in, they deliver their furniture. And then we have the housewares company go in and, deliver the housewares. So all of the linens, the pots and pans, plates, towels, everything like that. And then we have all the services that go in. So you've got your cable technician, your internet provider. Sometimes they're the same person, but they have to coordinate with the TV delivery because obviously you can't set up cable if you don't have TV. And then you've got, your electricity, gas, water, all these services that have to be established in a really short amount of time because then, we typically do all of this about 24 hours prior to the guest arrival. And all of that is typically coordinated through the leasing office. So the on-site leasing office, that's where each of the parties gets the keys, access to the keys. And they usually share one set of master keys to get in and out of the apartment. that they check in and check out through the leasing office. Well, now you got to figure the leasing offices are closed. They don't want people coming in and out. So how do you still do that and still coordinate all of those services and ensure that they're not, working in the same space because they need to be at least 6 feet apart? And, is the furniture delivery person wearing proper attire and masks to protect the housewares provider that's going to come in after them, or the cable technician that's going to come in after them? So there's a lot of challenges that we're having to work through. And that's why it's super important that, service providers that we do work with, they keep all of the corporate housing companies, in the loop with how they're changing their protocols so that we can ensure when our guests are coming to us for housing needs that we're preparing an apartment that's safe for them as well. And so that's why it's super important that, it can't just be, well, we're doing our best, we're staying safe. No, we need to know specifically what steps you're taking, and so that when our clients ask us, we can tell them and we can feel good about it too.
100%.
So
100%. Love it. Got some more comments, got some questions. Let's go through some of these here. Martin Mayotte, my buddy, says, go Stros.
Nice. Did you see my cup? I gotta
show it
tell you. Okay, so this is the controversial, 2017 world champion, and it has my name on it. That's my favorite part.
Oh, nice.
I gotta say, this is gonna sound really tacky, and I apologize, but I think that coronavirus may be the best thing to happen to the Astros in a really long time. Nobody's talking about a cheating scandal right now. I'm telling you that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I was going to say, did you buy that cup or did you steal it? I'm just totally
I probably should. If I would have stolen it, it would have been a better story, but it was actually a Christmas present. That's kind of boring.
Oh, messing with you. Rory, hello, Mini Moves in Broadview. Hey, Rory. Faye Hawksworth. Hey, guys. H-Town.
Yeah, so since you mentioned Faye, I'm going to do a shout out really quick. Faye is the president of Houston Relocation Professionals, which I'm on the board for that as well. And so we're doing some virtual happy hours on Thursday. We have 2 time slots. Everybody's invited. So we're going to try to just connect, even though we're far apart. I know a lot of the regional ERC groups have had to cancel springtime events. And so we're going to try to make the most of it and see if we can get some connection opportunities. So if you want to join us on Thursday, we got a 3 o'clock and a 4 o'clock time.
So is that's not just it's not just for Houstonians there?
No, anybody can join us. Yeah, with HRP, we our membership population, obviously we have a lot of suppliers and things that come from different parts of the country. So
and where do people find the link for that?
They can go to HoustonReloPros.org. That's our website.
Here, I'll put it up here for everybody.
If you're on LinkedIn, I think I shared it this morning, or I was tagged in something that it was shared on. So, and then also one of our other board members, Christina Blondheim, has been working on putting together a virtual webinar with a bunch of corporate mobility managers coming on to give their kind of 2 cents about, where we think this whole thing is going to go and what changes are going to stay and what changes, what's going to go back to normal. And so that'll be a good webinar. I think we're going to try to do that at the end of April. So
okay,
should be a good.
Awesome. Time. And they can people can also find that on HoustonReloPros.org as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think we have that posted yet because we haven't confirmed the date, but it should come out within the before the end of the week.
Okay. And Christina Blondheim is also working on a workout bingo for all the worldwide ERC YPs.
Nice.
So that should be coming out soon as well.
Yeah.
So a little tease there. Anka Haberlin says 20 degrees Celsius is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which I appreciate that. I
said 80.
Yeah, right. Roy Ramirez says 77 Chicago. Yeah, it's beautiful out here as well. It's just a little overcast.
Nice.
Paul Seymour. Okay, now wait. We're getting some folks. Paul Seymour says, "Come on, Michelle. I'll sing with you."
Oh Lord.
Winky face.
Paul would sing. Yeah,
he's my winky face.
Karaoke a couple of times.
And then John Marsh says, "Don't let her fool you. Foo Fighters are in her wheelhouse."
That is true. Okay. If you want to hear me sing, then just.
I don't write the comments. I just read them.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. You can go there.
Okay. I just read the comments. I don't write them. I promise you. And then I think we actually have the GoFundMe is actually
Oh,
I think
Lord.
I think the GoFundMe is actually up to $60 now.
Oh, man. Y'all
Oh,
are
here
spot.
let's see. We got some actually some serious some very serious stuff. Vinny, Sam. Hey guys, first time I've seen Michelle.
Sam's my, she's the president of Preferred Corporate Housing. I have not seen her since like the start of February. We have not been in the same space since the beginning of February.
Sam, look, she's hard at work. She's got her hair brushed. She's got the makeup on. She's pursuing the mission out here. I mean, she needs some hazard pay. Shelly,
Hey,
Shelly
Joel.
Bishop. Hey, Shell. All right, let's see here. Ann Knapp checking in from Scottsdale.
Nice.
Love Ann, friend of the program, guest. Let's see here. Brianna. Hold
Yep.
on.
Another that's a big old question. Another one of my team members there.
Okay, let's see what she says. Hi from PCH. I also haven't seen Michelle in months, so I do have a question, and it would be interesting to get both of your perspectives on this. Finally, somebody asked me something. In response to COVID-19, many companies are now converting to, quote, virtual internships, end quote, rather than their typical big group move intern summer programs. How do you suggest temp housing companies navigate this in the coming months? And do you think virtual internships are going to be an ongoing norm beyond COVID-19? A little bit of a thought exercise here.
Wow.
So what do you think about virtual internships, Michelle? And do you think that will be a new norm kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's tricky right now. A lot of temp housing companies, a big bulk of our summer business comes from intern programs. And so at least for PCH, a lot of the companies we typically work with are moving to virtual intern programs for this summer because they don't have a choice. Those would all be starting up within the next 30 days or so. And there's just too much unknown about what the next steps are with this thing to, commit to an intern program. And we'd have to start moving that wheel right now and making some final decisions right now in order to make them successful. So virtual internships, I think, are a thing this summer, but I don't think they're going to stay forever. And that's been something that temp housing companies have been questioning is this going to give companies the idea that they can have internships virtually going forward, which would be a huge hit to temp housing, but I don't think it's going to stay. I think that there's too much that's lost. The whole purpose of an internship is to develop culture, to develop camaraderie, to see kind of the day-to-day inner workings of a company.
To get somebody to get you coffee. I mean, you just can't do that virtually.
You really can't. So I don't know. I just think companies are going to lose out on so much, and as far as building your company culture with those people, if you look 6 months ago, the conversation we're having is how do companies attract and retain talent, and how do you use your relocation benefits and programs to do that? And I think COVID-19 is forcing us to go the other direction, but I don't think it can be permanent that way. I think companies are still going to have to attract and retain talent. I think they have to be able to instill some sort of company culture within the people that they're attracting. Otherwise, they have nothing to stay for. And I don't think you can do that virtually. I don't think we're far enough down that virtual path for companies to really have a good grasp on how they can do that virtually across the board.
Yeah, I'm of two minds here. My first reaction is exactly what you said, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like, if I'm an intern, the number one thing I'm learning in my internship is how to go to work.
Yep.
What does that mean to put my pants on every day and show up to an office and do whatever they tell me to do, because I don't even know what people do in these things, Mm-hmm. So there's that office environment, and I feel like an internship, it's one thing to work from home, having worked in an office and learned how to do office stuff. It's another thing to have never even had that experience. I mean, if you do virtual internships, that's basically like entry level, never having worked in an office. How do you even show up every day? How can you even be relied upon? I know I'm sounding like I sound like a boomer right now, but how can you even be relied upon to be responsible and responsive and available and equipped? So to me, I think you're going to see people offering them maybe, but if I'm an intern and I'm a high caliber intern and I could intern at Microsoft remotely, or I could intern at Google on site in Mountain View, I'm taking that on site experience, every day.
Right.
Unless I have some sweet summer job or something and I'm trying to juggle multiple things, and that's where I go into my second mindset here to argue both sides of the same point, is that there will always be people that will take, I'm going to say, the easy way. Yeah. Because I think it's easier to stay home and remotely intern at Microsoft versus going off to Seattle and being big, scary immersion kind of a thing, It's easier to learn Spanish than it is to go live in Argentina. Right. You know what I mean? So there'll always be people that will take you up on that. But to your point, if you're an organization that's trying to recruit the best and brightest are going to want that immersive experience.
Yeah, and I also look at I think that it will change the landscape of the intern programs and maybe how they're formatted. So I could see maybe shorter, stays throughout the summer. Maybe they only stay for a month now instead of the entire summer, and they do the other 2 months virtually. I can see some changes from that perspective, but I do think that there's still a lot of value to be had in, having those interns on site and there and physically in your office. And I don't know. I mean, nobody really knows what this COVID-19 thing is where we're all gonna wind up on the flip side of it. I mean, I tell people, on these happy hours and stuff that we have to stay connected, I'm like, I don't like to think about what's gonna happen a month from now, because it really stresses me out. One of the things that I love the most about our industry is being in the same room with all of these people, competitors, partners, collaborators, just being physically present with these people and getting to share my life and my work and, to relate that way. And we can have as many virtual calls as it takes, but it's not the same, Yeah. And I'm so nervous and stressed that it's going to take a long time before we're all in the same room together again.
I know what you mean. I mean, I remember the last time I saw you in person, I want to say was it Lake Geneva maybe?
It may have been.
Lake Geneva? Because I came with you. We were at the bar. I came with you. I tapped you on the shoulder, gave you a hug. We had a drink. We laughed. Whatever. And you just don't have those types of run-ins.
Yep.
Like this.
Yep.
I mean, you kind of do, because you have the happy hours and people get a little loose, and they're not being broadcast or recorded. But you don't have those candid little, let me tell you something on the side, and what do you think about this really? The meeting after the meeting where it's like, oh, that was BS, What do you think? Or let's work on this side project together,
That's what makes our industry, and I wouldn't say just ours, I don't think it's exclusive to us. I do think we're a little unique, but I think every industry is like that, where part of what keeps you motivated to keep doing a good job is to see other people that do the same job that you do or a similar job, to see them successful and to share those successes with them, or to, get down in the, in the muck of it all and share your commiserate, and share your stories as well. And I think, for formats like this they just don't offer as much opportunity to do that. And yeah. I don't know. Well,
yeah. I mean, the flip side
makes me depressed.
Me too. Today was a rough day. I was talking to somebody about this. And I was like, some days I feel great. I'm like, there's opportunity and chaos. And some days I feel like I just want to cry. I'm like, what's my new normal going to look like? Is it ever going to be this great again? Anyway. All right. Here we go. Let's see here. Bailey Burns, go PCH, go. Jamie Massler, management companies are not being flexible on rents due for companies. They are working with individual residents A lot of clients are asking for up to net 90 now, which is
Yeah,
compounding
that's
the
a good
burden
point,
on small
Jamie.
companies.
I actually
Have
have that. Yeah, I have that in my notes here. That's one of the things that we're seeing too from, I don't know if this is across the supply chain. So I don't know if you guys are seeing it too on your side, but we're getting a lot of requests from our RMC partners to extend our pay terms. I've seen net 90 a couple of times. Net 60 is the most common one that I've seen, but I think it's, companies are asking their RMC partner to extend terms, and so they're trickling it down the supply chain. So.
You know what's interesting about this? I got this call last week from one of my very close friends at an RMC, and he said to me, he's like, "Hey, just want to let you know, we are extending terms, asking for some cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
Need some help here.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting stretched out by our clients, and we need to not pay our suppliers right now."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, "When's that going to be over?" And he's like, "Don't know."
Yeah.
So you want me to extend terms to net whatever for whatever amount of time?
Yep.
I know when RMC's on board suppliers, one of the things they should be doing in their diligence is credit checks, and they should be looking at the financial stability and viability of these companies that they're doing business with, right? Because you never want a supplier to go out of business.
Right.
But that whole equation changes when you stretch them out. So to your point in the beginning of this conversation is, yeah, I was a financially sound and viable company. I'm not talking about my company. I'm talking about in hypothetical terms. It could have been a financially viable and sustainable company 2 months ago at net 30 terms across the board, but now I'm at net 90, net whatever, net whenever. And what if I go out of business?
Yeah.
What if I go out of business with 50 storage lots in my warehouse? What if I go out of business and you have 20 residence units,
That's the scary part, is that nobody sees the end. We don't know what the end looks like. Every day there's different reports. Oh, they think they found something that's great. They're going to try this new treatment. And then you've got the opposing side coming back and saying, no, this treatment hasn't been tested. Nobody knows. And so when we're being asked those questions, can you give us net terms? Can you extend us? We want to say yes, but at the same time, how much risk are we opening our company up to? And then what's the flip side if we don't say yes? You know what I mean? So
right.
Good news, I'll take the other approach from it. And once again, I can't say this enough, but I am so grateful I work for a company who has fiscally responsible leadership. And so I don't know if Samantha's still listening, but I'll give a shout out to her and John for the way that they run PCH. But, it definitely takes a ton of pressure off of each employee every single day when we're logging in from home, knowing that our company, we're able to offer net terms when people ask us to, and we're not scraping for cash in situations. I don't know if it was you, but I was on a webinar or a happy hour, whatever it was, where somebody said a quote from Warren Buffett that I thought was super interesting. And it was, when the tide goes out, you'll be able to tell who's swimming naked. And
wow. That's a good one.
That's a really profound quote right now. And I think it really does kind of expose a lot of things. I think that there's some companies that have been swimming naked for a while, and the tide's out right now, and we don't know when it's coming back in. And so, all I would say,
I love that visual right now. I'm thinking of all my relocation counterparts. I'm thinking of who's naked out there.
Conversation, but all I would say is I would hope that those companies that are asking us to offer these net terms right now, and we're complying and we're doing everything in our power to keep them whole right now as well. I hope that when all is said and done, and this, we get to the end of whatever this is, that's remembered, and that I hope that goes into the column of, this is why we work with this partner over this partner.
Well, and which clients out there you have that kind of relationship where they're going to remember your partnership, and which clients out there just use and abuse service providers. And I think we already know the answer to that. The question is who's naked and who's not, and hopefully the ones that treat you right are the ones that aren't naked.
Yeah, well, and that's when the conversation gets scary, is if you already know that company's swimming naked and they're asking you to extend their pay terms, and there's no end in sight. at what point is this a lost cause that we got to start bailing, So I don't think we've reached that point with, at least not any of the clients we work with, thank goodness.
Are there any clients you want to tell right now, you're swimming naked, I ain't doing? No, I'm just
all
kidding.
Of you.
Oh gosh, I'm just kidding. Oh, this is great.
Just ask us. No.
You got me laughing over here. Oh my goodness.
I did have a few things. I know we had talked or kind of communicated about. I was actually supposed to be giving a session on intentional living and kind of avoiding service fatigue and avoiding service burnout, and how you can use intentional living to do that. And it's kind of interesting that all of this took place because now we're all working from home, and the whole conversation was going to be about how do you blend your home life and work life to where you don't burn out one place or the other. And so now they couldn't be more blended right now. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, just with some of the points that I had put together and some of the research I had done, I've kind of come across some epiphanies that I think are super important right now.
Talk to me.
I'd love to share them if that's okay. The first one is more related to COVID-19. We keep using this term essential and what's an essential employee or essential worker. And so it doesn't matter what your role is within your company or what your company does. If you're not acting right now, today, and every single day that you're logging into work as an essential employee, then you probably never were an essential employee. So that's kind of one of the things. I mean, I feel like we can't wait for our companies to dictate what the next step is. We have to, as the employees, as the team members, we have to keep looking for opportunities to make our companies successful. And if we're doing everything we can from wherever we are to keep us above water, then I think we'll be fine in the long run. But
it's like if you want to be a leader in your company, now's your chance.
Exactly. Exactly right. That's exactly right. The other thing that, has really been important to me since I've been home is the what goes in is what comes out mentality. Like you said, there are days that I feel like I'm in a dark place and I don't know how to get out of it. And I realize on those days, those are the days that I have the news on in the background 24/7. And all I'm hearing are death tolls and this experiment's not working and this country's economy's busted. And it's just, so I've really been trying to be diligent about making sure that I'm using my time right now to do things, self-care related. So I'm trying to spend at least an hour a day. That's it. I don't think that's a big goal, but at least an hour a day doing something that's going to improve me personally in some way, shape, or form. So whether that is reading a book about how to be a better salesperson, or exercising, or something that is going to, just kind of change my mentality and take me out of that darkness. And I know everybody's talking about that, but, it just seems like that's hard to do. And, I don't know how to get started with that. It's just the little things, and the more you listen to, the more you take in that's negative and scary, the more that's what you're going to feel, and the more that's what's going to come out. So if you instead, use positive things and intake those things, that's what's going to come out. And so that's kind of what's going on there. Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that, and you're being intentional right now, because here we were, and we were kind of, going down a bit of a negative kind of a tangent, and just talking about our reality right now, and you stopped and you were like, there's a couple things I want to talk about, and there's a couple things about
doom and doom,
I think that's what we have to do. We have to stop and say, okay, stop, time out. There's stuff I know that I need to do, and I'm going to go do those things instead of reacting to the newsfeed.
There's two other things that I kind of cycle in my head all the time. And, I went to a client forum last year and heard a speaker, which I'll have to email you her information. Her name's Natalie, but I can't remember her last name. I feel terrible that I can't. But one of the things that she said is gratitude doesn't share space in your brain. And what she meant is if you're spending your brain power being grateful for whatever you have, your brain doesn't have any other room for any other thing. And I put that into practice, and it is 100% true. And so, I'll use this example. So Thomas Bailey, friend of the show, obviously, and David Bunnell suckered me into signing up for this quarantine half marathon thing.
Suckered me in. Don't you hate when healthy people sucker us into stuff?
I am not a runner. I'm terrible at it. But I thought it would be a good idea. And obviously my goal is to do, an hour of something good. So I've been on these runs and I'll get about halfway through and I'm dying, but I have to stop in my brain and say, it smells great out here because it's springtime in Houston, and look at that flower, and oh, there's a sweet family. They're having a great time in their front yard. And if I just think on those things, I forget all of the other negative, and I don't even do it purposefully, the forgetting part. It's just, that's what happens when you're focusing on what you're grateful for. There's no other room in your brain for anything else. And so that's really
great.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's great. And for everything that we feel challenged with right now, we have to realize that we have so many blessings in our life.
Right.
And that's been one of the things I've been clinging on to. I mean, and we hear people talk about silver linings too as well, right? And silver linings are really just the realization and articulation of all the blessings that are in our life right now amongst the chaos, So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, so many folks checking in and just enjoying this here. There's Christina. Christina, it's officially out. I think she means her workout bingo.
Oh, nice.
And then she also had a song request, Taylor Swift.
I do know one Taylor Swift song, but
Girl,
I'll play it for you later, Christina. I'll send it to you in a link.
I was so close, Christina. Maybe I can get Thomas Bailey and David Bennell to sucker Michelle into playing a Taylor Swift song right now. That would be awesome. Gosh, Michael Quigley checking in, says company culture isn't the same via Zoom, talking about the internship program. Jamie says it will be hard as a lot of interns room together to keep costs down. It will come back once we get over the virus. In person, so much better, says Maria. Simon Johns, the new norm is shirt, jacket, and boxers. I bet my suit trousers are going to be a tad snug when this ends.
Yeah, so my favorite thing is people calling this is called the webinar mullet. So I'm not practicing it right now because I'm wearing like a this is a comfy dress, like one of those dresses, but I have a blue jean jacket on. But they're saying like business on the top, party on the bottom. So
yeah,
take on the mullet.
I have a mullet. I was joking, so I gave myself a haircut. And I got Ron Burgundy in the front and Joe Dirt in the back. And I got like this, I trimmed it off my neck just to clean it up, make it feel nice and tight. But I got nothing going. I mean, it's just hair. I can't even show it. I'd be so embarrassed.
Yeah, I've seen at least 10 of my male friends that did the quarantine buzz because they don't have another choice and they don't know how to cut their own hair. So I don't know what I would do. I mean, I'm not going to lie. My colorist has been doing a great job all these years because I had no idea I had this increase. And now I'm like, oh, Lord.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, those are most valuable players right now. As soon as this is over, those hairstyles.
That's great. William Taylor just proposed to Taylor Swift. When we get married, she'll be Taylor.
Oh, nice.
Let's see here the comments on Facebook. We got to have some fun here. Let's see who's checking in. We got Steve Arpendriver in Virginia. Vinny says you can talk. We know this. All right, we got the up in the ante here. Brianna, sorry y'all. Vinny, quarantine half baby. Let's do it. Oh, the quarantine. I thought that was a suggestion. I didn't understand. Let's go half on a baby. I didn't understand where he was going with that.
There will be some quarantine babies, but not from this place.
Yeah. Hey, the pandas. The pandas had a quarantine baby.
We did? I didn't see that.
They made a baby, yeah, which is very rare. They didn't do it for 10 years.
Wow.
And they just needed some privacy, apparently. That's what they say. Let's see. Martin says the new norm is adding your Skype username to your email. Take it to the bank. And then we have one last suggestion. I don't know where that came from, but gosh, golly, maybe you could take us out. You wouldn't be the first person to sing on here, but you might be able to take us out to the end here.
I'm not prepared. Next time you have me on, I'll prepare a song, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Sorry.
I did want to say, are you doing so this is your first conference?
So I have been, yeah. I don't know if I'm doing it virtually. I did it in, where were we, Boston? I led that session.
Tell me about that experience.
I think, well, I mean, I kind of have two different things. I think the scheduling made it a little weird in Boston because that session was the day after the conference had started. So there were a couple of people that had already missed a little bit. But I think it's super valuable and super important to kind of have a plan whenever you're going to participate with any sort of ERC event, whether it's the big conferences or the regional ones. And I think you don't know what you don't know. And so people that have never participated or never been a part of this group sometimes find it intimidating to get started. And
so what's a few pieces of advice for someone who's never been to Worldwide ERC conference or maybe a CHPA conference or a conference in general?
Yeah, so my first piece of advice is to, obviously, if they offer a session for first-time attendees, attend it so that you can get an idea of what's happening. Most conferences now have an app of some sort, and they'll send you the links to that in advance. So get into the app, start looking around, start getting an idea of what the schedule is. Have some kind of key takeaways that you're looking for when you're attending the conference. If you don't have questions or kind of points of need when you're going to a conference, then you're probably doing it wrong. So you should come into an event like that knowing, okay, I'm struggling with this, I need to find answers to this, or my supply chain is light in this area, so I need to schedule some meetings with these types of suppliers, or whatever it might be, but just have some goals in advance and then use the scheduling in the app and things like that to align with whatever your goals are.
You know what? You just said something there that made me think of something. Go into the conference knowing what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. What are you trying to get out of the conference? Mm-hmm. And I think that's more intuitive, but based on, you said something before that's, what you put in is what you get out, right? Mm-hmm. And I think with that same notion, go into a conference knowing what you're there to give as well.
Right. Absolutely. Especially, and I think it's harder for those of us that have been to 10, 15, 20 ERCs because we think, oh, it's another ERC and it's just same old. And we don't go into it intentionally. We don't set goals ahead of time. But for, you, I know, I know thrive on what you give is what you get, and so it's super important. It helps when you go to conferences like that, even if you've been a bunch of times, to still walk away with something of value. You can't expect to show up and be entertained. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily come to you,
Right.
You have to go get it, and you also talked about something, if you've been to 15 or 20 of these, it's very easy to fall into a complacency mode, right? Mm-hmm. I know everything. I know all the people that are going to be there. I've heard all these sessions before. I already know who I need to know. Right. I know everything about relocation. And we know that, this space, just like everything in the world, is changing faster than ever, right. And so it's important, even if we've been to 20 of these things, to keep our eyes open and to be open to meeting new people, right? You can't just click up with, we love seeing each other, but I think there's a tendency for us to just click up with people that we know, and we miss all the people we don't know.
So one of the goals that I had at the last ERC in Boston was to shift my kind of timetable. So typically I'm a night owl, and so I'll do a lot of the, obviously I'm there for the first session in the morning, but then I stay out late, and I feel like a lot of a lot of connections are made late. If you've been to an ERC or any sort of conference, that's true. But what I realized is because I was staying out so late, I was completely missing the morning activities that were happening. So there's always like a morning walk or morning yoga or, a breakfast or something like that. And I realized I had never conversed with any of those people. So
that's a whole different crowd sometimes too, right?
That was so valuable to there were so many different people that I had never met before at ERC, even though they'd been there just as many times as I had. So just a little shift like that sometimes is just as important. So.
That's a great, So I've gone to 2 conferences, 2 ERCs, I think, where I didn't drink at all. And it was a totally different conference.
It really is.
Totally different people you end up meeting. So throwing yourself little curveballs and keeping yourself uncomfortable intentionally, right? You talk about being intentional. It's like, be intentional and throw yourself a curveball
Yep.
just to get off balance. And anyway, Michelle, I could talk to you forever. You're such a beacon of positivity. I love how candid and real you are. I think it's really a breath of fresh air in this industry where sometimes we can be a little stuffy. I mean, I think that's changing, but I think I just love your candor,
Well,
and your
likewise, my
heart.
friend. I think you're doing amazing things, and just giving people an opportunity to discuss their pain points, discuss what they know, and give people the opportunity to ask questions and have an open dialogue conversation is super important, especially at a time like this. So I love what you're doing. I hope you keep doing it. You're amazing at it. I love the fact that you connect people, and you personally get so much value out of that connection too. And you can see it across your face. So
I'm like seriously like getting a little woo over here. No, but Michelle, thank you so much for your comment. Is there anything you want to say to folks that maybe you want to leave us with, or any final thoughts?
I mean, I have so many things I could say, but I guess the thing that I'll leave with, since I'm talking about positivity, is joy. The dividends that you get from exhibiting signs of joy are exponentially greater than the dividends that you get from any other emotion. So if you can find ways to be happy, it bleeds into so many other aspects of your life, whether you want it to or not. Those dividends just pay out so much more. So my daughter's middle name is Joy, so I love the word. I try to use it all the time. But
that's great.
So I feel like that's a good closing thought.
I love that. Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate you being here. Take care, everybody. Stay positive.